Welcome to Know Your Candidate podcast. This is an opportunity for candidates from across Tauranga City wards to tell their stories, their experiences, their reasonings in their own words. A format which gives them more than the public debates and profiles that you've seen already. An opportunity for the voter, the ratepayer, future resident to get to know who you want leading the city and, importantly, are they capable of doing so? Anne Pankhurst, a previous business owner, councillor and political junkie, will find out more why the candidates want to run, where they have come from, what they're going to do. So let's not wait anymore. Let's go.
Hi, Harris Williams from the Arataki ward. How are you?
Hey, Anne. Yeah, good, thanks. Happy Monday.
Thank you, and welcome to Know Your Candidate podcast series. Our format today is to take the opportunity for a longer, more conversation approach so you, the candidate, can speak and share your own aspirations for the city. We'll take about 20 to 30 minutes answering pre-prepared questions, of which you don't know. The most important aspect of the selection is that you vote, particularly in your demographic, I would say. Democracy works when we all engage, actively take part, learn about our candidates and understand what is important to us for the future of our city. Remember to follow our Know Your Candidate podcast series on the podhub.com so you can also share it amongst your social media channels as well, please. Now, Harris, give us a quick rundown on yourself. Who are you? Children? No children? What have you done in the past? Give us a brief bio on yourself. We're really interested to know.
Yeah, no worries. All right, where do I start? I've been living in Tauranga since I was 5 years old. Obviously, went away to do my university studies and then I had a brief stint up in Auckland where I was working in the television industry. But long story short, COVID came in, COVID redundancy, like many people experienced, and moved back here to Tauranga, where I started up a marketing business. So that was about 3 years now ago. The marketing company still exists today. It's called Wisp, and very proud of that achievement. In terms of personal interests and where I'm at in my life at the moment, myself and my partner have a baby on the way end of October, which we're very, very excited about. And we've recently moved in to Arataki because that's the place where we ideally want to bring our daughter into this world and raise her. It's a fantastic suburb, and it was actually the first suburb I lived in when my parents came here all these years ago. So it's sort of a return to where it all started, which is really exciting. In terms of other personal interests, I'm really active into my sport. I play in the Premier Men's Division for Te Puna, and love my running, love getting out and about, and love involving myself in the community wherever the opportunity lies. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Well, congratulations on your baby in October. I'm sure it'll be a wonderful experience.
It sure will. Yeah, absolutely.
All those nights of no sleep. I'm sure you'll love it. Into our first series of questions. Have you had any previous governance roles? And if so, what would have been the biggest budget that you have worked with?
So in terms of direct experience, no, being the owner of a marketing and communications business. But with that being said, through my experiences with this company, I have been able to work in the public sector and with council. So we've done quite an extensive bit of work with Taupō District Council, actually, mainly working with their comms and engagement teams around how to essentially strategize and roll out effective consultation with the community there, and just making sure that anything that's being delivered is done in a transparent and honest way, a well-communicated way with the resident there, so the ratepayers, right? So I've had a lot of experience in that space, and should also mention as well, definitely on the private side as well. So working actually with the Northern Quarter development down in Tauranga CBD. So that's a $60 million development happening right now, which is incredibly exciting to help move our city forward and create a bit of vibrancy and bring people back to our CBD. So although not directly, I've had a great deal of experience through my business in the relevant sectors.
So my next question was going to be about what experience do you have working with or in TCC, and I think you've probably answered that in the last question, unless there's more you'd like to add to that.
No, I think, yes, I pretty much summed it up quite well, in terms of, yes, although not specifically with Tauranga City, have had quite a fair share of experience working with other councils through my work.
Cool. So my next question then is, what do you consider the main role of a mayor and councillors of a city to be? What would you consider their role?
Oh, yeah, it's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Listen, I think fundamentally, we are the elected representatives of the ratepayers and residents. I mean, it's their hard-earned money that goes into rates that helps fund our salaries, and we need to essentially represent our community voice and why people voted us in the first place. So in terms of how that role plays out for councillors and the mayor, it is putting the interests and values and concerns of the residents and ratepayers above any other group or interest. We really need to essentially listen to people and deliver outcomes that are reflective of that community voice, and really strive to achieve that. So that's honesty, transparency, lots of consultation, making their ratepayers' dollars work hard to achieve outcomes that they want. So I'm a big believer in a city for the community, paid by the community.
So the skill set that I'd really love to drill down on is the ability and experience that you bring in managing complex commercial and political environments. What do you consider your skill and ability and experience to be in this area?
Yeah, so another great question. Listen, through my work and commercial experience, I've had to manage teams big and small. I've worked with very large businesses in corporate environments and otherwise, and been a part of really complex, big budget rollouts where teamwork is a fundamental factor in order to get a good job done. So in terms of skills and I guess the intangible skill sets that I do bring, I'm an excellent communicator. I believe very strongly in teamwork. I believe that no one person can do everything well at once. I love listening to the experts and to the specialists in certain spaces, using their advice and achieving great outcomes through that collaborative approach. I am a massive believer in honesty and transparency to achieve outcomes that are reflective of the people that you represent. And yeah, I think that's it. That's basically a brief summation of what I do believe in terms of that skills and experience, big on teamwork, big on communication, big on transparency. And the last thing I would add is accountability. We, at the end of the day, have a council body that are behind us, the engine room, so to speak. I am really big on holding all parties accountable to deliver great outcomes for our people.
So what about complex commercial situations? Have you been involved in any commercial? You talked about the $60 million experience. Have you got any other experiences?
Yeah, so complex commercial, I mean, definitely in the marketing and communication space. So I guess very narrow in terms of that, in terms of the relationship, in terms of development. Yes, conversations I've sat on, and I guess in those boardroom environment, and I mean many things that are happening, say with Northern Quarter, and the complex amount of problems and issues that need to be solved to deliver that project, working with council on the public side to be able to bring that project together. So that would be where my experience lies in situations like that. And then also during consultation and extensive community engagement in terms of making sure that that community voice is brought in and administered in that boardroom environment, and those issues being raised and worked through accordingly and effectively.
So if funding for the huge infrastructure spend is one of the biggest issues facing the city, what would one of your solutions or a solution be for that?
Could you please repeat that question? So in terms of
If funding for the huge infrastructure spend is one of the biggest issues facing the city, what would your solution be for that?
Yeah, it's a
hard one.
It is. It's a complex question, because at the end of the day, whether it's rates rises or the money that needs to be spent to deliver these outcomes is inevitable. We can't avoid that. I mean, Tauranga has been, I guess, without a growth plan or a way forward, it seems, for so long, and now we're left with this massive, this massive falling apart city that we really need to act on to deliver it. In terms of, I guess, lessening the burden on the ratepayer, I'm just really about a balanced approach, and I can give a very quick example around that. A one solution fits all that is funded entirely by the ratepayer is not the way forward. For example, in our CBD right now, we have over $400 million of investment, but a lot of that's coming from the private side too. So it's looking at balancing, and also I think what really gets missed out quite a bit is the small and medium business, the building owners in the CBD, and how are they being enabled to help build our city up, to create more of a balanced approach to growth. So we're not relying entirely on $306 million for a Te Manawataki or Te Papa project. In terms of transport, making sure that we're not just putting all our eggs in one basket, with public infrastructure, public transport infrastructure for buses. We actually need to make sure that cars are still a viable option. In terms of housing, making sure that we're not just going up in vertical, because building vertical is very expensive in New Zealand. We need to balance that with some smart zoning and building outwards as well to create a more balanced and affordable approach. I just think balance is very important, and it shouldn't fall all entirely on the ratepayer to deliver these outcomes. There's the private sector that can help essentially invest in the city and create outcomes with a more shared, balanced approach. Would be my best answer to that question.
Your answer's not mine. Okay, next question. Given that you govern at large, but champion and represent a ward, how do you see collective action when it's not what you think your ratepayers or some of your ratepayers would want? How do you manage that conflict?
There are going to be hard decisions with this role that at times might be better for, say, the city at large, but not to the benefit of, I guess, the people within your ward. These things are going to happen, I guess. The only way in which you can navigate that in the best way possible is through transparency and through working really hard and getting your boots on the ground to share the information and share all the facts with your ward in action that is working with relevant community leaders and groups, holding regular meetings and giving people the access to information to hopefully understand, here's the issues that we're facing and here's how we've come to this decision. I know that it might not be in your best interest, but at least you know that there's no smoke and mirrors, and we've done our very best to give you all the information to show you why a certain decision has happened. I just think transparency is really important, and also understanding that as a role as councillor, yes, I am representing Arataki, but at the end of the day, we're a governing group that is for the benefit of Tauranga, and understanding that difference and understanding that, yes, sometimes you're going to have to make some hard decisions that are for the collective benefit of Tauranga, as opposed to just trying to keep your voters happy, so to speak. So I'm aware that can be a difficult situation, but I'm willing to do whatever it's necessary to move Tauranga forward.
So, excellent question answer. What is your reaction to the view that Tauranga is a critical part of NZ Inc. and particularly its growth? So we have to think more nationally than locally because what happens here matters to New Zealand Inc.
Excuse my ignorance here, Anne. Can you please enlighten me on NZ Inc. and
So NZ Inc. is the wider national economy. So
Okay.
because we are part of the Golden Triangle, which has
Yes.
two-thirds of the revenue, we are no longer just a nice little beachside resort off the end of the isthmus of Mount Maunganui. We are fundamentally part of New Zealand's economy.
Yes, it's a tough one to answer in the sense that I guess fundamentally, you know, where do your priorities lie? Is it for our people and our people first, and having that really inward look versus understanding your place in the broader New Zealand setting? There are aspects of our city that, yes, are very localized and which we can look in on. But for example, we also have our port, which is, I believe, the largest in New Zealand, that is a key economic driver for the rest of our country. So we have both internal responsibilities and external, sort of like what you're saying. I think, again, it comes down to balance and essentially listening to all sides and trying to ascertain and deliver the best outcomes that are collectively balanced between representing your local interest and then understanding your place in the broader economic setting. In terms of directly how that looks, listen, I don't have the answers or all the answers to that question. But what I can say is that I guess recognizing Tauranga's place in that broader setting is absolutely imperative to, once you sit on that councillor table, to be able to recognize that and understand that that is an aspect that needs to be invested in and pushed forward as well for the benefit of New Zealand.
Great answer again. So how do you think you're going to manage multiple competing interests, such as reasonable rates, new funding models, infrastructure deficit? How do you think you're going, or how will you manage the choice between investing in growth and versus rate relief?
There's a magic word, and it's extensive consultation with our community. I think that really does help in terms of ascertaining what public spending or how public spending is being allocated, and if it's of, I guess, net benefit cost to value to the ratepayer. That sort of segues in nicely, I think, to our existing long-term plan. I can say here absolutely that I am in favour of the long-term plan. I think our city is desperately needed a way forward, and we now have the building blocks to achieve that. What I can also say is through my extensive discussions and consultation with the community on this campaign, a lot of what people have been saying is that it feels like a long-term plan paid for by the community for the commissioners, as opposed to a long-term plan paid for by the community for the community. Clearly something has gone amiss in terms of people feel like they haven't been listened to, and this long-term plan doesn't reflect their interest. So in terms of finding that balance, it is, yes, absolutely, we need to grow, and some of these projects are absolutely pivotal and necessary to move our city forward, but really, really trying our best to activate and engage our community and their voice for outcomes that they want every step of the way, to ensure that growth and the relationship between rates and all those factors are being met transparently and honestly.
So we've got about 5 more minutes, so I'll ask you a couple more questions, and
Yeah, no worries.
just get one at the end. So can you give an example of previous leadership role where you didn't achieve what you had hoped for from the role, and how you dealt with failure and what were your lessons through that?
A fantastic question. In terms of leadership setting, that is something that I guess I've far more recently stepped into when I took a massive risk and started my own company at a very young age. So I was 23 years old when I started my marketing business. I think that says quite a bit about my work ethic, determination, and ambition to achieve outcomes for myself and for my future. In terms of
Your baby's future now.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the stakes rise, but I accept all that responsibility, and that's absolutely fine with me. I welcome it. In terms of failure, I can speak about. I mean, I've failed plenty of times in my life, and I always get back up. I mean, losing my first ever job at Sky Television off the back of COVID, and then being left jobless in a very uncertain market, and not knowing what to do next. You know, that felt like a massive failure at the time, but I was able to pick myself up and essentially said, well, you know, if now's the time to try and make a difference in my life and move myself forward. And that's when I founded the business and got to work basically. And it was a very tough, especially first year. Anybody that's ever started a business venture can attest to that. It's really hard going, but I persevered. Kept believing in myself and essentially used that failure, I guess, which I now don't even see as a failure, it's a lesson. And then it emboldened and enabled a brighter future for myself and now for my family on the way.
So one of the questions that I wanted to bring up with you, and it's specific to you, is that you've mentioned comms and engagement a lot through this discussion. You are obviously an expert in that field.
Yes.
So how would you change the comms and engagement if you became a counsellor? What would be some points that you would bring to that role?
Yeah, listen, it's something that to answer that with absolute confidence, it's actually getting inside the machine and seeing how the process take place. I'm saying what I've seen on behalf of what people have told me during this campaign process and what the community's main gripes are with this long-term plan and how things have been rolled out, and especially their issues, especially with the commissioners. So in terms of concrete strategies moving forward, something absolutely I'd love to look into and then look to achieve better outcomes during that process. What I can say though is, I guess, and why democracy and councillors are such a great step forward in this respect is that we will now have a much wider variety of faces at the table that all represent an individual ward. It means there's more time for boots on the ground and engaging with local communities for the issues that matter to them. It's a time and resource thing. With the previous commission, obviously, much less of them, most of them didn't even live here. Their resource could only spread so thin, and then a lot of people were missed out on in terms of having their voice reflected, so it seemed. With this new councillor setup, or returning to the councillor setup, should I say, it allows councillors to be much more hands-on and direct with their community and representing that community voice and then bringing that to the table and then achieving a collective Tauranga outcome. That's basically how I see an improvement to the role of communication and engagement and consultation, is the effort of each individual councillor to get boots on the ground in their community and actually represent their people and their voice and go the extra mile, basically.
So, which is a great practical solution to that. But do you think that if people say they're not heard when a decision is not what they want, or do you think that, is there a challenge in that dichotomy that on one hand, I may well have spoken to somebody, but that somebody's made another decision that I don't agree with or want? Does that cause some engagement or comms problem?
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. And there is never a perfect scenario where a decision is made and everybody's happy. That's democracy 101, right? There's going to be, and I hate to say it in this sense, but winners and losers, right, of any decision. There's going to be people that are unhappy with a decision that's taken, and that's the burden you have to bear as a counsellor. And I think recognizing that, and also recognizing that yes, you are elected by your community, and you're there to fight for your community, but you can't be tied to basically trying to achieve every single outcome that they want, and forgetting that you're actually representing the whole of Tauranga. You really need to have I'm here for Tauranga, not I'm here for Arataki and Arataki alone at the expense of Tauranga mindset. And I think, yes, it creates headaches, and it creates, I guess, confrontation and conflict, but you need to stick to your principles. I think principles are so important in this role. And yes, I'm here to fight for my community voice and achieve outcomes, but I'm going into this role to represent Tauranga and this future of our city in its entirety.
Excellent. Well, Harris, thank you very much. It's been an excellent 25 minutes, and I wish you luck for the next few weeks. So I'd really like to remind you and all of your demographic to vote, please.
Yes, please.
The future of the city is in the youth. It's not in the oldies like me anymore. And can you share this podcast through your networks? That would be also wonderful. And to follow us on thepodhub.com and hear the other candidates that have come on here to interview. So I hope it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be. And again, good luck.
Awesome. Thanks, Anne. I appreciate it.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Okay. Catch you later. Bye.
Bye.
Tune in to the next episode of Know Your Candidate to be informed on who you want to run your city. Got feedback and like to comment your thoughts on the episode? Connect with Know Your Candidate on social. This has been the podhub.com experience. Check out thepodhub.com for other podcasts and how you can even do your own.